Welcome to the People Behind Property podcast, brought to you by OBrien Real Estate. In this series, we shine a light on the personal stories, career journeys, and expert insights shaping Australia's real estate market. Meet the agents, the industry leaders, and the voices behind the OBrien network, because here it's personal. So let's dive into today's conversation. I'm here with Peter Clark. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you, mate.
Thanks for joining, mate.
Good to be here.
Great to have you here. And I thought about maybe a bit of a title for you, and we thought about, the pursuit of better, and your kind of take on leadership, legacy and local impact. And I first met you probably, I reckon maybe 10 years ago at business class. And,
Yes.
I look at you and you're a young veteran in real estate. You're still a young guy and you've done so much in your career. So let's just jump into it and see where it goes, mate.
Yeah,
So,
let's roll.
Absolutely. So look, take us back to 1997. What drew you into real estate in the first place, mate?
It's what drew me into real estate. Nothing drew me in. My father had a real estate business at the time. Mum and Dad started the business.
Yep.
Through school, I had a lot of people say, you'll follow your dad, right? You'll follow your dad. You'll get into real estate. You've got the gift of the gab. And I think at the time, I almost saw that as a bit of a negative. I think people thought I was just going to be given this opportunity. So initially, I actually was rebelling against it. I'm like, I don't want to do real estate. I want to do nothing like it.
Yeah.
And I actually started a job as a chippy when I left school.
Yeah, okay.
And you wouldn't picture that, would you?
Yeah.
And don't, because
wasn't your thing,
mate. I sucked. Right? Don't.
Yeah.
If you ever need help putting together an IKEA pack,
don't call
me. Right? I was no good.
Yeah.
Actually, I remember the day I resigned, and my boss at the time knew my dad because he sold a bit of real estate through Dad. And I don't know if he was just scared or if he was too embarrassed to fire me, because the day I resigned, you should have seen the look on his face. It was just pure relief. And he's like, Pete, stick to selling them like your dad. Promise me you'll never try and build a home. and I didn't.
Yeah,
So I still didn't know what I was going to do. I wasn't going to get into real estate, but my dad, he's a hard worker, and so was Mum.
Yep.
And they said, no son of ours is going to be doing nothing. So they said, come and work with us for until you figure out what you want to do.
Yeah.
And I never left.
Yeah, well, mate, doesn't sound like there was any free rides, because you started as a trainee.
Reception, PM, admin.
You did everything.
Sales.
And look, if you look now you're regional director at OBrien Corporate. You're also, lead one of the most respected regional real estate businesses in Victoria. Did you ever imagine the path that you're on? Like, did you ever think you'd be where you are today?
No. Like, and maybe it was because we're from the country, right? And our business was a humble business at the beginning. Mum and Dad started the business because Dad was unemployed, and he sat there. I remember him saying, he goes, "Well, I was going to get paid sitting at home. Or I wasn't going to get paid sitting at home. So if I'm not going to get paid, I might as well sit in an office and see if at least if I can earn something." And so they did. They started the business because he was unemployed, and bit by bit they built the business. And I think when I got into it, I didn't realise what opportunities this industry could have for us.
Yep.
And I hadn't really spent a lot of time in Melbourne at that point in time. I was young, I was a country kid, and I had no idea where it was going to go. But it was incredible. You say 1997, God, I can't use this for my online dating accounts, mate, because now you've admitted how old I am.
Well, it'll be all over socials anyway. But you're a young veteran of real estate.
Young veteran, I'm going to take that.
Take it, definitely.
But it's been crazy. It's been a lot of fun, and it's led to some amazing opportunities and meeting some incredible people. And the business is, it's just evolved over the years.
Oh, it has. I know you had that first national journey, and then you went out into your own independent brand.
Yep.
It's correct if I got this right. So you bought the business from your parents in 2005. Is that right?
Yep, 2005.
What was that moment like? Like, how did it shape your leadership style? Like, you've obviously handed over money to buy it from your parents. Like, what was that experience like?
It was daunting, and to be honest,
a bit of no free rides again, was it?
No. Well, Dad, I'm one of four boys, right? Yeah. And so Dad had a legacy, and he also, and as I said, like, they weren't wealthy. We weren't born into a lot of money, right? Yeah. Dad started it because he was unemployed, four boys. So he needed that money to retire.
Of course.
And he had three other sons.
You wanted to make sure you were able to do that.
Yeah.
For him.
But it was a whirlwind. I was at the time, I was getting married to my ex at the time, and we bought the business at the time. I was 26 years of age, and I had no clue how to run a business.
Yeah.
I could do sales.
Yeah.
And I was good at sales, and I had an entrepreneurial mind. I was putting a lot into the business already.
Yeah.
But it was a big learning curve.
Yeah, I think you've obviously always been a visionary, but even though you didn't know what that word was, I think you've always been able to look into the future, haven't you?
I've always liked the challenge,
Yeah.
right? I've always liked to challenge myself and the people that I'm with, and
Yeah.
but I still remember the first time I had to fire someone, right? Like just that. I was shitting myself, right? Like it was
sick in your stomach.
daunting. Yeah, it really was, and I think I copped out too. Like embarrassingly, I think I gave some woeful excuse, like I couldn't afford it, rather than the facts. And, but it was, it's been a big learning curve, and you still continue to learn today. That's probably why I've been able to survive in the industry, and I think that's why so many people do. Once they get into it, they stay, because it's ever evolving, right? There's always something new to learn, something new to challenge you. And,
No, definitely. You mentioned the pursuit of perfection, and even if it's unattainable, that you're still pursuing that. Where did that mindset come from? Like, how did you, and obviously that mindset you try and instill in your team as well.
Yeah, like I guess the pursuit of perfection is something that I've always maintained is an ongoing and impossible mission, right? Because times change, things change, and we change, and our clients change, and our markets change. So when we set a vision or a goal of what maybe brilliant looks like and what perfection looks like, by the time you reach it, the market's changed, or the clients you're serving have changed, or the team you're leading has changed. So that pursuit always has to be there, because I don't think you'll ever reach it.
Yeah.
But the challenge of constantly driving for it, I think, is what's kept me motivated, and is what kept me alive.
Yeah.
In terms of the way it shapes my leadership, I'm trying to come back to your question there. But
like I suppose just, the mindset of kind of that, the leadership and that pursuit of kind of perfection. Not that you're never perfect, but you're always striving.
Even from a young age, I'm OCD, right? Like I'm obsessive compulsive, and everything's got to be tidy and in its place. But I was always a bit of a perfectionist too, even as a kid, and sometimes to a fault. I often wouldn't want to try things if I didn't think I could do them well. I think business was really good for me in that respect. I think getting into business and getting into real estate, it taught me that it was okay to fail. Yeah. But it kept that drive, I guess, for perfection, because all of a sudden, once people, you're leading people and you're owning a business, but you're also just having clients. Yeah. They need you to be at your best. Yeah. And so the idea of not giving something my absolute all, not being at the peak of it, it's just never been an option for me. So I don't know where it really came from. Yeah. But I'm competitive. And I love the idea of knowing that if I'm giving something, I'm giving it my all. And I want my clients, I want my team, and I want my colleagues to know that if they're on the journey with me, whatever that moment looks like, that we'll nail it.
Yeah, I mean, what I know of you is, and this is probably off topic a bit, but I see you here as Regional Director, and you're obviously running our rural business across Victoria. And then, I forget you're actually running 2 other businesses down in Gippsland, and then, you're up in Queensland seeing your family and doing all these sorts of things. Like, you're spinning a lot of plates. Yeah,
there's usually a fair few balls in the air at one time.
Yeah.
But you know what? That's it's part of life.
Yeah.
And
well, you do it well. Like, I just forget how many things you're actually dealing with.
Yeah, and I think for me, look, I'm probably at my worst when I'm quiet.
Yeah.
Like if you give me a dozen tasks to get done in a day, and I'll nail them and find time spare.
Yep.
You give me one, and I'll probably look at my golf clubs and think, hang on a minute, is there something else I can be doing?
Golf as well.
So I think for me, being constantly not constantly under pressure, but having a continuous workflow has actually been really important for me, and it probably helps me. And this is a bad word, right? Because I'm certainly not diagnosed and it's bantied around.
Yeah, of course.
I'm a bit ADHD, right? Like I need to have something constantly on the go.
Definitely. Yeah, I think we've got a little bit of that in us, but it's a different degrees.
I think most people kind of do, right? We're certainly on the spectrum.
Yeah. So what have been some defining moments for you since you've gone and you've opened up as OBrien and OBrien Clark?
Yeah.
Well, what have since you opened up and changed brands, it's because that was like the third rebrand for you.
Yeah.
What's been some defining moments since you moved over to O'Brien Clark?
Well, look, it's been a lot, right? I mean,
Yeah.
obviously buying the business was a defining moment.
Yeah.
Opening my second office was a defining moment. When I first got into real estate, we were independent and we changed over to First National under my father's reign. And then, we've had the independent at one point. I think it was part of First National for about 20 years, independent, and now with O'Brien's.
Yeah.
I reckon, look, probably some of the most defining moments, the one that comes to mind most is the auction comps.
Yeah.
You know, when I made both novice, but also when I made the senior auction final.
REIV or?
REIV. And, to be the little kid from the country, and back then I certainly, whether you want to call it imposter syndrome or not, but I certainly didn't feel like when I went to some of these large events that I deserved to be there. So to get on stage at the Arts Centre in front of hundreds of people and belt out what I thought was an amazing call. I was really proud of my call.
Yeah.
Adrian Patira and Maddie Young from Buxton's, they picked me at the post, but the feedback that I got was amazing, and the judges said I was definitely up there with a chance, and so I think at that point I kind of went, I can make it in this industry, and I deserve to be here.
It's so good that you reference an auction comp of all things, given everything that you've achieved in your career. So it's pretty good.
Yeah, no, mate, it's good. And it looked probably the REB. We made top 50 REB as an agency at one point. And I can't remember what number we were. It was 35, 33. And again, it was one of those moments where you sat there and went, you know what, we may be just little kids from the country, but we're doing some great things. And that was that. Awards don't mean a lot to me, but it was that recognition that, do you know what, we have achieved some real great things in our market.
And even just our recent awards, because you're leading our rural business, like there was a lot of regional businesses, in the top 10, top 5. So,
and that was really, to watch our last awards and to see so many of our top 10 and our offices in regional markets performing so well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pride in that. I mean, that's their accolade,
which is the
not
testament
mine,
to the engagement
it's great.
that they've got with you as well. Like, it's the relationships that you've got as well. So I think that's great. So, which leads us into probably, a little bit about regional leadership and community. Like, what makes working in regional community like Warragul and Drouin unique to you compared to, say, metro areas? Because, you're in metro a fair bit as well.
Yeah. You know what? I say this to a lot of people. Metro and regional agencies, if we talk about offices for a moment, they actually have the exact same issues. They face the same problems with agents undercutting and overquoting, cheap commission agencies, recruitment. We do face the exact same problems in metro as we do in regional, and vice versa. I reckon the main difference really in regional markets is the amplification of it, right? You take recruitment, we talk about with all our offices at the moment how hard it is to find great talent, and recruit people. But you try and do that in a small town like Alexandra, right? Yeah. In comparison to, metro areas where you may have hundreds of thousands of people at your disposal within 10 or 15 minute drive. Yeah. You then go to a little town like Alexandra or Bairnsdale, or Torquay, and you might have a population of 5 or 10. So it's the same issue, but it's just amplified. I was talking to someone recently about it, even reputations. We all work very hard for our reputations, and we don't have a bad agent among our network. And really, our industry has 99% of the industry are phenomenal business people and upstanding citizens, right? But occasionally you upset someone. Occasionally something goes wrong.
Of course, it's just life, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. But you do that in a small regional town, right? And the amplification of that is just so much greater. Yeah. So I think that's what, I think that's why a lot of regional offices are so much more involved with their communities. Yeah. Because they see the importance of having people see them for who they are. Yeah.
And it's almost like there's a community expectation almost as well.
I think so. I think so.
Yeah. Your team, talking about your 2 offices, have become a pillar in the communities you mentioned. Like, what role do you believe the real estate plays in shaping and supporting local communities, which is what you kind of just touched on a bit there?
Yeah, role. Look, I don't know if it's a role we play, right? But it's certainly it's a choice, and it's one that I think agents that care tend to make, and our officers always, and my team have always chosen to be heavily involved in the community because, I guess at the end of the day, when you're in housing, whether it's rental sales or not, we see the market at its rawest, right? We're seeing financial hardship and success. We're seeing, issues with families and domestic violence and all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So we actually are often a lot closer to what's going on at the core of a community than what people realise. And I think that's why sometimes, and it's why I see a lot of agencies, not just ours, but a lot of agencies get heavily involved for that reason because they're close to it, right?
Yeah,
they
definitely.
see it at a real raw. And when you're in people's lounge room in some of the most vulnerable moments, it's actually a privilege.
Of course it is. Yeah.
But it's a kind of at the same time it's a bit of an awakening as to what goes on.
Definitely. I mean, you're in there, you're trying to normalise something that they're highly heightened emotionally over.
Yeah.
And that's probably part of what we do, isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And I've seen this on socials. You do donate a lot of your time to different causes, and I was really impressed with the Anzac Day one, and you're up there doing push-ups recently for that one as well. But why is giving back, so important to you, probably personally and professionally?
Yeah. Look, I mean, I don't know. I actually don't know why it's so important. It is, right? It's
you're very passionate about it.
Yeah. Look, maybe it's our upbringing. As I said, we were not born into money, but we never went missing. I've been very fortunate, right? My parents were amazing parents and amazing mentors. And my dad and my mother always gave back. Dad was a councillor and a mayor of the town for many, many years. And they sat on lots of communities.
Yeah.
And I guess for me too, right? And I was talking to Jason about this actually only the other day. A bit like what I was just saying before.
Yeah.
When you've seen what we see, right? Our industry, and I don't know that the community actually, or the public kind of understands, we only 2 weeks ago, we were heavily involved with a really horrific domestic abuse situation. And we were having to help this family through that, right? We were in their house dealing with it and the pressures that caused and the financial stress. And we recently had, to evict a man out of his home who had nowhere to go, but there was no choice. The landlords needed possession of that property and the emotions that go with that, right?
Very, very tough.
I've possessed homes with the sheriff because I'll never forget this. We had the possession order and we had to take the keys over from the sheriff. And the wife came home while the locksmiths were changing the keys. And she didn't realise, but her husband had gambled their entire life savings away.
And she
the bank
literally
was
found out just
repossessing.
then and there. Wow.
Bank was repossessing the home, and she found out in that moment.
Wow.
He was this guy in a suit, in his 20s with the police and locksmith. And so we deal with so many life-changing moments for our clients.
Yeah.
And when you see that, and you see it at its most vulnerable and its most raw, and also its most exciting, right? Whether it's new families and the birth of loved ones and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. But we are often at the heart of some really powerful, emotional, and often really heartbreaking moments in people's lives. And when you see that, when you see the way some people live, I mean, you've seen it. Like I've been in drug dens and you name it, and you go, once you've seen that, I don't know that you can't not want to give back.
No, of course. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think people more in the community are looking to you to provide some calmness.
Yeah.
And just, we've done this before, just some confidence that, we're going to try and normalise this as much as possible, which is not easy if there's domestic violence involved and things like that.
It's funny. I often say to my new staff members when they start, I say to our new clients, it's one of the most unique industries, right? Because we might be salespeople or property managers, but it's one of the few industries where you're a part-time marriage counsellor, part-time financial planner, part-time accountant, part-time lawyer. And a
mentor to your team as well.
Yeah, we wear so many hats for our clients because people do come to us, for advice in all these different areas, and which makes it pretty awesome.
Oh, absolutely, and which brings me on to my next thing, which I watch how you work and balance. If you think about you as a business leader, your businesses, you as a community voice as well, your family, other challenges that pop up that, you're dealing with? Like, how do you make all that work? Regional director, you're running our rural business as well. Like, what are some key things how do you do it?
Long hours. Balance is a funny thing, right?
Because you're driving all over Victoria for
Yeah.
corporate, but you're still running these two businesses, as
Yeah,
well.
look.
And you're up in Queensland, like you're just
Queensland,
everywhere.
and it's a tangled web of woven, mate. But no, look, you know what? It's funny. I guess probably two things, Andrew. I guess when I've got an objective, if I was to pat myself on the back or give myself one accolade, there are not many people that will outwork me when I've got an objective to meet.
Yep.
And I've always had that, right? And from a young age, I've been willing to do the hours and do the work.
Yeah.
But balance is a funny thing, right? Because I think the word balance has been hijacked over the years. People think of balance, and I hear it all the time, and need work-life balance, need work-life balance. And they get this impression that means that everything has to be perfectly
Something
equal
stops
or fair,
so that you
right?
can do something else.
Yeah, but I don't think it is, right? Like if you and I hopped on a seesaw right now, that seesaw never sits perfectly flat.
No.
It's up and it's down,
Yep.
and it's up and it's down. But if we averaged out while we're on that seesaw, the amount of time it's spent up versus down, you would find it's beautifully balanced. And I think that's the way our life is and the way our business is. Sometimes you've got to lean into it. Sometimes the balance will be more skewed to your home life, right? Whether that's health or marriage or your partner or your kids. Other times it's got to be more skewed in business. And I've tried to take that, and I think I've got better at it. I think for the first part of my career I was shocking. I think I just work. But I learned to lean in and go, you know what? I've got a busy time at the moment. I am going to do 12, 15-hour days.
Yep.
You're not going to see me. But that's what I'm going to do. But when I get through this patch, I'm going to take that time for me, and I'm going to have that moment for me. So I think when people think about balance, if they accept that balance doesn't mean you're always equally even, and that sometimes you have to skew your life in one direction, but know that it won't be forever, then you become really peaceful with it, and you do find your balance.
Yeah, definitely.
Look, I still battle with it. Some days I think, crikey, I need more time off. And then you go, hang on a minute, no, I'll make that happen.
Yeah, and you keep pretty fit as well. I think you've got a lot of resilience around that as well, and you live a pretty healthy lifestyle, which helps. So you've got a lot of energy.
Well,
which is what I see.
I don't think you can perform and then come back to performance. If you want to perform at your absolute best, you have to present yourself in your best. I don't think I could have done what I've done without keeping up my health and fitness, because you can't work a 15-hour day and survive that if you're not looking after your body and your health.
Exactly.
So our health and fitness is super important.
Yeah, well, you look good, and I was going to say, you are a young veteran in real estate.
We're getting a little romance going on here because you're looking pretty fit yourself, buddy.
I'm not trying to show up your age here, because you are a young veteran in real estate, but you've seen and been around the industry for 3 decades. Like, what do you think's changed over that time for you? Probably even going back from when you were a trainee to now. I mean, obviously the internet and digital and all that, but what else?
What's changed? You know what? It's probably more about what hasn't changed. Like when you look at some of the best in the industry, right? You look at the Alexander Phillips or our very own Michelle Stevens. When you actually have a look at what some of these people do, it's no different to what we did 30 years ago.
Yeah.
They do the fundamentals, and they do it day in and they do it day out. And yes, they've polished what they do, and they've used tech and all that to advance it. But fundamentally, real estate still comes back to connections.
People business.
It's a people business, and developing relationships, nurturing those relationships. I actually think what's changed is that the large portion of the industry's got worse at that. They are relying on tech. They're relying on the now, and forgetting that, that client will reoccur again, and that client nurture, if you will.
Yep.
But I mean, obviously, look, tech's changed, and I think it will continue to change. But it's a funny beast too, right?
I think you're right. I think it's such a great insight what you just said. Then old school real estate is still new school real estate.
Yeah, and I actually think that's why our industry and profession will survive. It's why AI won't take it over.
No.
AI will fundamentally make what we do so much more efficient and effective.
Yep.
It will help with our client's journey and propensity. It'll help us know who's going to do what, when, and all those sorts of things. Like, make no bones, it will revolutionise our industry.
Definitely, yeah.
But when you think about what a salesperson does, right, and a property manager, but particularly salespeople in negotiation, our number one attribute that we bring is the ability to negotiate an outcome.
Yep.
Now, that ability to negotiate an outcome is very rarely to do with facts and figures.
Yeah.
It's about feelings, right? Why does someone pay so much more for a property than the other person, right? Because they fell in love with it.
Yeah.
And ultimately, a salesperson or a negotiator's role is being able to amplify that and make people feel something, make them feel that fear of loss, have them feel that sense of confidence. AI won't replace that, right? That's what great salespeople do. And I think that's the difference between really great salespeople and others. They understand that their job is to make people feel great in their decision process, whether that's taking a lower price or paying a higher price. They make people feel confident in what they're doing.
Yeah, definitely.
You can't take that away.
Right, it is emotional and people want the properties that they want. But
Yeah.
in terms of the future of real estate, what excites you most about that, and especially around regional real estate, which has obviously had a surge through COVID and all that. But give me a take on that.
Look, I still think regional markets have a lot to play, right? I do. I think we're going to see a large migration out to regional markets. The infrastructure is developing out in major regional centres now. I think we're going to see big developments there that'll bring job opportunities, and look, it'll always be that affordability piece too, right? As properties get smaller, people look to move out to get that little bit of extra land or home. So I think it's exciting times ahead for regional markets. You know, we had a boom through COVID.
Yeah.
It probably flattened right off. Last 12, 18 months have been really tough in a lot of regional markets because it was probably oversourced or oversold during COVID.
Yep.
But coming through that, I think it'll advance. I think the exciting thing about the future of real estate is that we actually still don't know where it will go.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know that
It's the unknown, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know that anyone's quite figured out what it will do. And
even harnessing AI, like there's not this kind of utopia of what that looks like. It's
even business models, right? Like, and you and I have spoken about this a few times, but we've had the birth of the work from home model, and all that type of thing, and but I mean that's been around for a long time, right? Like Remax tried to bring it's very American, right? Remax tried it 10, 20,
didn't really
30
take
years
off,
ago,
did it?
right?
But
it didn't really take off.
They're still there though.
It's probably now getting its most traction.
Yep.
But in reality, that's not new. That's been around for a long time. And from what I see overseas, that's actually starting to flip back the other way again.
Yep.
So I think there's still a real unknown as to what our industry looks like. I think the main thing will be, and this is not just real estate, and I think medium business in this country is all but gone. And even Don from Macquarie was talking about that with us yesterday. I think we are going to see a real emergence of smaller work from home models and much larger, and that those medium businesses are going to look to merge and acquire.
I agree. There's a lot of that going on now, just within the merger acquisition.
Well, they've got to get they've got to get that scale. So because the profitability's gotten so much difficult, margins have got more difficult, costs have gone up, and they'll continue to. And when you're in that middle-sized band, you're usually at a level where you need enough infrastructure to make it work, but you're often not at a level where you're capitalising on it all yet either. So I think that's probably the thing we're going to see over the next decade. Yeah,
definitely. I think like the younger agents in your businesses, I'm sure they're lucky to have someone like yourself in there as a bit of a mentor. You know, what to our listeners, like what mindset or habits would you say have contributed to your long-term success? We've kind of talked a little bit about that as we've gone, but is there anything else that kind of stands out?
Look, there is actually. I'm really passionate about a few of these things, and I try and instill it in my team. Number one, it's always your fault, right? Now, that sounds like a bit of a dark place to go, right? But I've always taken the mentality, and always will, if something goes wrong, if I miss a listing, if my kid's upset with me, if I have a bad situation with my staff members, it's my fault.
Yeah, I actually love that.
Well, you think about it, right? And as put it into a sales perspective, you go out to a listing, you miss the listing. How many times have you heard an agent come back and go, "Oh, well, I lost on fee"? No, right? Yeah. It's just an easy blame point, right? And look, maybe 1 in 10 you do lose on fee, but the moment you point the finger, the moment you blame someone else, you can't learn.
No.
Whereas if you come back and you blame yourself, I lost on fee. Why did I lose on fee? Did I not show value?
Yeah.
Did I not understand what the objectives of the client was? I think that's a really important piece, right? Blame yourself, because you can learn so much more and you improve.
Yeah.
And that comes to the even better if, right? We hear Josh Fegan talk about it all the time,
Yep.
but even better if, and Dean and Stav use that in all their business. I've before I had it in that terminology, I've always kind of believed in that. Being a bit of a perfectionist, even when I'll nail something and I think, I've absolutely smoked that. That was brilliant. I will almost always turn around and go, if I needed to improve it, how could that be?
Yeah.
And I do that even when I'm talking with my children. I had a beautiful weekend with the girls the other day. And Taylor and I got into a pretty heavy conversation about something. And I reckon for the next hour, we're driving home in the car, and she's very similar to me. And I think she was doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But I just sat there going, how can I improve on that? I don't know that I quite got my message across to her. I don't know that she quite understood what I was trying to help her with and why I was trying to help her with. So it's that even better if mentality.
Yeah.
How can we continue to
Definitely. I love that.
to evolve and be better?
I love that. Like just having that awareness of it's my fault. It just changes the dialogue that you're speaking to yourself with, to find and ask different questions to get a different result.
Well, you have an argument, right? Whether it's with your partner, with your staff member, with a colleague. Like 9 times out of 10, we walk away from that and we're we're angry or upset, and we go, that's their fault. And Andrew said this, and he's not getting what I'm trying to say. But if you actually turn around and go, hang on a minute, why didn't he understand what he had to say? Did I actually not communicate that well? Was my body language poor? Did I not show enough facts and figures on what I was trying to talk about? You can grow from that.
Yeah.
The moment I say it's your fault, the learning stops.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's awesome. A really good insight for our listeners as well. Talk legacy. I mean, if I look at you, I feel like you've already, on some levels, you've already built that legacy. You're probably thinking, no, I've still got much more I want to do. But
I hope so.
what do you hope your team, your clients, your community would say about the impact that you've made so far? What's you so far?
Look, I mean, the answer is I don't know. I don't know what they would say. I'd like to think, I think about the amount of careers our business has forged, and half our competitors started working in our office. Some people look at that and they go, "Chick, that's not a good thing, right? Why do you lose staff members?" But most of the people stay with us for 10, 15, sometimes 20 years. It's only natural they want to go on and do different things. And I actually see it as a real accolade that both my father and myself and our team have been able to forge so many careers.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big impact. I also take a lot of pride in the fact that, and this might sound a bit harsh, I don't mean it to, but not many have been able to still overtake us as a business. Not many have gone on to be greater, which means our company as a whole, our team as a whole, as a unity, not me, our team.
Yep.
Has continued to stay at its top of its game.
Yeah.
So I think as a legacy point of view, I think, to be, almost 30 years in the industry and our business, both my father's and mine and our teams, to be at the top of its game for so long, I think that'll leave an impact.
Yeah, awesome. As you know, at OBrien, we say, it's personal. And I think well before OBrien, it was always personal for you. What does that phrase kind of mean to you now after many years in business?
Yeah, look, I think I was actually rapt when we started utilising the It's Personal campaign, right, at OBrien's. So I think it's always personal, and it always has been. And I hate that phrase. Don't take this personally. And I used to say that quite a lot. It's not personal; it's business.
Yeah.
I've tried to stop myself saying that now. These days, I actually try and be a lot more blunt and say, Andrew, you might take offence to this, but I'm going to say it anyway because it's important.
Yeah.
Because I think the idea that it's not personal is, a bit wrong. It doesn't make sense. Right? If we are people after all.
You don't shut that off.
We're emotional.
Yeah.
And so most things will make an impact on us. I think for me, I've always strived, and I believe my team have always strived. So that's why they work with us.
Yeah.
to always put the client first,
Yeah.
right? And don't get me wrong, we're competitive and we've got a business to run, we need to make profits and all that sort of stuff. But ultimately, if we make our client the number one focus and making sure they get the outcomes they want and what they need, and for business leaders and like yourself and myself, our clients are not just the vendors and the purchasers, they're also our staff.
Yep.
When you take that approach, it's hard to go wrong.
Yeah.
But also that's where it's personal kind of matters, right? Like it's, we spend far more time with our colleagues and our clients than we do our own family. So if we're not making our business personal and taking it personal, I think we're doing something wrong.
Yeah. No, I love that. This has been a great conversation. Final two things, Peter. Anything you'd like to say to your community or your team who might be listening to this?
Look, I got to get cliched, mate. Right? You got to say thank you, right?
Yeah.
Like this is,
Love it.
almost 30 years in this industry. There's never been a dull moment, and I've had some amazing times, met some amazing people.
Yep.
Had some hard times too, right? Like
Of course.
I was thinking about it before, going, like we've seen some super heights, but crap, we've been through some horrible lows. But through it all, amazing people. It's been great to me. It's enabled me to have a great career and a great life, and my daughters hopefully to have a great life. So I can only thank both my colleagues and my team and my community for allowing me to do what I've done for so many years.
Yeah, awesome. I think that's great. And finally, where can people connect with you or follow with what OBrien Clark's actually doing?
Yeah, look, jump on our Insta, right?
Yeah,
I'm not very good at it all, right? But you'll find me on Insta. I don't hide my mobile number, so
that's it. Yeah.
Look, I've always said, I know you do the same, that this is a giving industry, and so as much as we talk about giving to community and that, if I can give back to any of our colleagues out there, they only have to pick up the phone and call me.
Yeah.
Not always easy to get, but I will return phone calls. So love to help.
Awesome. Well, Peter Clark, thank you for joining People Behind Property podcast, and hopefully we'll get you back again because it's been an awesome conversation. Thank you.
Mate, this has been great. Thank you.
Thank you.